The crossover is rolling like a ball down a mountain. You can't stop us. Brandon Kravitz, Mike Bianchi, the Simon and Garfunkel of sports talk radio. I don't even know.
Can I be Simon and you be Garfunkel? You can shake the tambourine while actually Simon does all the work. I want to be Garfunkel. I'll just shake the tambourine. You do all the work.
All right. Sounds good. I don't even know who that is. I just figured you would appreciate it. I got an email from a listener, Mike, and it's a very nice man named Gerard. I would like to read this to you.
Okay.
He says, "Hello, Brandon. I could just be having a senior moment, but wasn't it you who did Uncle Paulie? If so, can you bring him back at least for a couple of gangster picks a week? Your breakdowns could be great. Injury reports, broken bones, kidnapping. I'll give you some load management. Uncle Paulie's picks. Forget about it."
Uncle
Paulie. Political correctness isn't what it once was.
No, but he was Uncle Paulie was a very popular feature on open mic for a while.
I think some people thought that because Uncle Paulie started to fade away around the time of COVID and, everybody got a little tense. I think some people out there think that Uncle Paulie got canceled. That's not what happened. No. Uncle Paulie made so much money in the sports betting where he's betting on New Orleans college basketball that he's floating on a gondola in Italy. He's living the life.
New Orleans basketball and Fresno State. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I just wanted to get us started with some lighthearted emails. But what you got, Mike?
Here's what I got. Here's my first question for you. You are a member, an esteemed member of the Orlando Magic radio broadcast team. I'm getting worried. We've gone 14 games now since Jalen Suggs went out with the quad contusion. Correct me if I'm wrong, all right? And maybe I am wrong, but wasn't there the vibe before the All-Star break? Okay, Jalen will be back right after the All-Star break, and boom, the Magic will be off and running with their full allotment of players. I don't think that's the vibe anymore. I'm not feeling that vibe, but you're around the people, the crew over at the Magic a lot more than I am. Are you worried that Jalen Suggs isn't going to be back?
I have not had that worry creep into my mind yet, but I couldn't tell you that I have any sort of timeline or knowledge of a return. I don't even think the training staff knows that, so let alone me. It's very confusing because I've heard you talk about it. I don't think your stance on this or your paranoia of Jalen Suggs just being a diva athlete is totally off base. I do think that he is playing a role in not playing in these games. I think in having active conversations with trainers and the head of the performance staff and Arnie Kander, I'm guessing here, just reading tea leaves, that he is saying, I'm not 100% right, and I don't want to go out there if I can't be Jalen Suggs. So, and some of that sounds like, well, if that's not the modern problem with the NBA, I don't know what is. Because back in the day, you would go back out there, you just play through it. But Jalen Suggs doesn't seem like the kind of guy to me that doesn't want to go out there and bleed for his team and his fans. So there is, I have a conflict in my own mind of how this is being handled, Jalen Suggs' mentality with all of it, and the lack of clarity from anybody involved.
Yeah, I just wish I just wish somebody would come out and say, if it's, hey, this is a lot more serious than people think it is.
But what if it's not? What should they say then? Yeah. What if this is Jalen Suggs saying, I know my body better than anybody else and I'm not good to go, and the training staff is saying, we think you are? Then what should they say? Yeah, and I don't know that that's the case, but I'm just saying it is.
If that's the case, then I guess this is the right strategy.
Yeah, because you can't say that about your player. You can't throw your players under the bus.
Right.
Since we're on the Magic, I'll stick with that. What did you say?
I said, just ask Pat Riley about that. You can't throw your players under the bus.
Well, exactly. Well said. Who knows how the rest of the season is going to play out, but I think the Magic making a deep playoff run is out of the question at this point. I think the Cavs put that to bed. And when you look at where Detroit is in the East, the Magic are going to have a really hard time not being a 7 or an 8 seed if they do make the playoffs, which means you get a round one series with Cleveland or Boston, and good luck with that. So I'm still going to enjoy the rest of the season. Look, we're covering a basketball team. This is not the end of the world. I still love watching the NBA night to night. I love being as closely affiliated with an NBA team as I am. But some of my mind has already shifted to the offseason. What should be the number one mission for the organization in the summer? And I'm not going to allow you to say the words "find shooting." So you have to answer the question. This is the challenge. You have to answer that question without saying "find shooting" or "find shooters." What do they need to do?
Well, first of all, I'm going to digress here. You guys were talking about a quote that Jerry Jones' son, is it Stephen Jones?
Stephen Jones,
yeah. You and Tea Time were talking about. He had a quote earlier this week from the Combine about how, they were going to be selectively aggressive during the off season.
Yep.
And you guys were making fun of that, saying, "Oh, that's an oxymoron." And I'm thinking, well, isn't that sort of what Jeff Weltman said at the trade deadline? We were selectively aggressive. I mean, isn't that sort of what he was saying at the trade deadline, which is why they didn't do anything at the trade deadline? But I digress. All right. What should the Magic spend these last 20 or so games doing? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying when it's done. What I'm saying is, and it brings me no joy to say this, but I have to be honest with the audience. To me, the season, how this season plays out, the rest of the 20 games, the playoffs, is fairly predictable at this point. And you can still have fun with it. I think the team is still going to make it to the playoffs, and it's cool that this team will be back in the playoffs. I don't believe, as of right now, in their ability to do anything with it. And the goal coming into the season was to make it a step further than you made it last year. I think that's out the window now, because you're going to run into Cleveland or Boston, and you're not going to be able to get past that in a 7-game series. So I am going to follow how that plays out. I'm on to the offseason.
Okay.
That's how bad that loss was on Tuesday. So what do they need to do then?
Other than fine shooting is what you're. Well, first of all, they need to decide. The first thing they need to do is decide which players on this roster they want to keep. Gary Harris, gone. Jonathan Isaac, probably gone. I don't know what the contract status, but these guys have not performed. They've been disappointing. There's no question about it. I guess you can't really do anything with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but there's no question that signing has been a massive disappointment. There's no question about that. So you have to decide. You have to go through your roster. This guy's okay. We'll Jed Howard. We'll take one more look at him. You have to go down your roster and decide which players you're going to keep. Which of your existing players, and I think there's a handful of them that are probably going to have to go, don't you?
I think your answer is I think it's the right one. I'm with you. I think that, and that's the reason why I wasn't freaking out when they didn't make a move at the deadline.
Right.
We all saw what the problems were. One player wasn't going to correct that. I think what you needed to figure out is who do you need to move off of? That at this point, where the Magic are right now, that is even more important than finding out who you need to bring in is who you need to move off of and not marry yourself to. I think you're 100% spot on.
All right, let's jump to the NFL Combine going on. Your favorite team, the Miami Dolphins. They're ranked at the top of the league, Kravitz. The NFLPA report cards have come out, and for the second consecutive year, the Dolphins highest grade in the league as far as player satisfaction, how they treat their players, training facility, all of that stuff that NFL players care about. I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Dolphins are soft. Chris Perkins, a Dolphins insider who comes on our show almost, every week during the football season, he calls the Dolphins locker room Club Mike because Mike McDaniel, he thinks, is running a country club down there. I think the Dolphins being ranked at the top of the league in quote unquote player satisfaction is not a good thing. I think it's a bad thing because I think the Dolphins they're an entitled locker room. Agree or disagree?
I completely agree. I've never cared about anything less as a Dolphins fan than this grade that they got for treating their players well. This damn organization hasn't won a playoff game since I was in high school, Mike. It took me a decade to get out of college, let alone you got to go back to my sophomore year of high school, the last time this team won a playoff game. I don't care how well they treat the families of the players or how cozy practice is. They should feed these players Burger King. I don't care if they're practicing on broken glass shards down in Miami. They have to get better. I don't care. I've never cared about anything less that's supposed to be positive than this grade right here.
Right. By the way, I think the Steelers had one of the worst grades, and they've been one of the best organizations in football.
I think the Chiefs get graded poorly too. How's that working out? Let me wrap with this, Mike. Bowl games have already taken a big hit because of player opt-outs over the years, but I fear that is now impacting my precious NFL combine. Among the top prospects in the draft, 10 of them are not participating. Shador Sanders, Ashton Genty, two of the top guys at their position said, nah, we're good. They're not even claiming that an injury is involved. Cam Ward might not participate as well. And this isn't anything that's odd. The top quarterback prospects didn't participate last year. I think the event has lost its luster, and I'm somewhat combine obsessed. Do you agree or disagree that the combine isn't what it once was?
If you're saying that, it has lost its luster. But quite frankly, Kravitz, I don't think the combine serves a useful purpose anymore, or much of a useful purpose anymore when it comes to scouting who you're going to draft. You know what the combine has become? It's sort of like, it's sort of like the NBA All-Star weekend, all right, which everybody has lambasted and said, hey, it's past its prime. They need to do away with this thing. The NBA All-Star game, the combine has become a week-long media fest for the NFL. We all know the NFL is the king of keeping themselves in the news 24/7, 12 months a year. And look at what the combine has done this year. The NFLPA grading the teams, that becomes a big story. All of these, the 49ers starting negotiations with Brock Purdy, that becomes a big story this week. The NFL just has a combine so they can stay in the news. That's all it's for, Kravitz.
I want 40 times. I want verticals. I want bench press. What are we doing? Wasting our time with this nonsense. The crossover is over.